should know this week. This is your weekly reminder to check the back of your bulletin for anything great going on during the next 7 days. There are monthly paper calendars available out at the welcome desk if you want a bigger calendar. This service and all of our services are live streamed, so smile and wave if the camera's on you. Honor asked me to let you all know that the May 29th work party is canceled. She also sent a reminder that the 4 p.m. hurricane season pregame on 5/27 is not a slideshow, it's a party, it's a social gathering. It's going to be looking at the lighter side of hurricane season while not dismissing the real seriousness of them. So please consider coming to that. And we have the blood center outside this morning doing a blood drive. So if you feel so inclined after the service, please feel free to go over and get vampired. Anything I'm missing? All right, I'm going to turn it over to the wonderful Jan.
Chalice lighting by Tracy Bleakney. This chalice burns with twin flames. The first flame burns for those who seek and defend the right to a free and responsible search for truth and meaning, so that each person may live according to conscience in a democratically elected society. The second flame burns for the defenders of freedom, working against those who would impose their own religious beliefs on others through intimidation or legislation. May we tend this fire always, ever vigilant and courageous in the struggle for freedom and justice for all. Welcome. Good morning and welcome to UCUP, the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Venice. We are so glad you are here this morning, whether you are joining us in person or online, whether you come every week or are with us for the first time. You are welcome here, exactly as you are. This week, as Memorial Day draws near, we gather for a service that asks, what do you hold so important that you would make the ultimate sacrifice to defend it? Today we are here to honor those who died serving our nation, and we are going to explore what it means to sacrifice for your country. Honor and sacrifice are not words we throw around lightly when we are talking about military service. Today we remember that the freedoms, possibilities, and protections we sometimes take for granted have often come at a terrible cost. We remember those who served and did not come home. We remember the families who waited and grieved and carried on. We remember that behind every uniform was a human being, someone's child, someone's beloved, someone's friend. And as Unitarian Universalists, we also make room for complexity. We honor sacrifice without glorifying war. We give thanks for courage while still praying and working for peace. We remember the dead not as symbols, but as people whose lives mattered. So may this hour be one of gratitude, reflection, honesty, and reverence. May we ask ourselves what is worthy of our devotion, what is worthy of our courage, and how we might live in ways that honor those who gave everything. Welcome. We are glad you are here.
Good morning, all you wonderful people. It is so good to see your faces here today. We are here on this Sunday to quiet our hearts and honor our beloved dead, not in triumph, but in reverence. And not with easy answers, but with honest questions. Because we don't glorify the violence of war, but we do honor the depth of human courage and the ache of human loss, and the sacredness of every life laid down in service to something larger than ourselves. In every life, and in the lifetime of every nation, there comes a time when we are asked what matters most. What's worth defending and protecting? Where do we place our strength and our labor, our loyalty and our love? And on days like this, we remember that some people answered those questions with their lives. So let us be tender today, tender with those who grieve and those who remember, tender with those for whom military service is personal and complicated, tender with those who long for peace and still know that peace has often been guarded by sacrifice. I hope this time together can open us to gratitude without arrogance, remembrance without romanticizing, and even possibly patriotism without hatred. May we count the cost honestly and honor the dead faithfully, and commit ourselves as best as we can to building a world worthy of every life that has been given in love and sacrifice and hope. Come and let us worship here together. Please rise in body or spirit and join in singing our opening hymn, number 347, Gather the Spirit.
Yes.
the time in our service when we do our offering, and we do it with a joke because giving should not be painful. And I'll tell you, this week it was interesting because I have friends in both the Navy and the Marines. And I was asking them about the joke that I'm planning on using. just to get their feel for it. And the Marine loved it. My Navy buddy's response was, please ask the Marine what color crayon tastes best. And the Marine buddy, who was also sitting there, turned around and went, that is really offensive. And I thought, oh God, you know, they said everybody knows the red one's best. I said, I hate both of you, and I'm no longer asking you joke questions, shut up. So here's the joke. A soldier, a sailor, an airman, and a Marine got into an argument about which branch was the best. The arguing was so heated that they actually wandered out into a roadway and got hit by a bus. A moment later, they pop into existence at the pearly gates, still fighting. And they said to St. Peter, can't you tell us, ask God, which branch is the best? And he says, guys, you know, you've all served honorably. Come on. No, ask God. We need God to tell us which branch is the best. And they all stood there waiting expectantly, and a moment later, a dove came down and landed on St. Peter's shoulder and spoke these words, memorandum from the desk of the Almighty to all former soldiers, sailors, airmen, Space Force, and Marines. Subject which military service is best, all services, all branches are honorable and noble. Each serves America well and with distinction. Serving in the United States military represents a great honor, warranting special respect, tribute, and dedication from your fellow man. I'm proud of all of you. Warm regards, God, U.S. Marines, retired. Hoorah! The morning offering will now be given and gratefully received. Thank you so much for these gifts and for absolutely everything that you do for the life and the work of this community. You are all amazing. We're here as a community of human hands and human hearts, and we come together to struggle with life's sorrows and celebrate life's joys. If you have something to share today, please raise a hand, and Marcia will bring you a microphone. She's on her own, so you may have to wait patiently for a minute. If you have a loved one whose military service or service and sacrifice you want to honor today, please feel free to share that.
This is Judah Parker. Today I have two things I wanted to talk about. One is on Memorial Day, we celebrate the dead. but nobody really talks about the ones that come home injured in many ways. And I think that because my husband was very injured. And I just want to say to those of you who were injured in the war, my heart is with you. The second thing I want to say is, all my life I've been the big sister. This winter I lost both my brothers, and I feel like the last man standing, and it's a very difficult thing because they both had their problems. One was mentally challenged and the other had bipolar, and so I kind of looked after them, and now I don't have that role, and it's a very strange thing for me.
I asked Amy if I could mention more than one person, and she said okay. So first I would like to remember my father, Frank Lutenberger, who was in the Army in World War II and liberated a concentration camp, and that stayed with him a long, long time. Secondly, I would like to mention my cousin Benjamin Pritchard, who was the head of the Union regiment, I guess, that captured the fugitive Jefferson Davis at the end of the Confederate War. And my other cousin, Thomas Pritchard, who served under General George Washington in the Revolutionary War.
Hello, Kim McHugh, and Matthew and I will be heading north this Wednesday for about 5 months. So we just want to say we'll miss you all and want you on the tube.
Hi, so Memorial Day. I did not come from a military family, but I had 11 relatives who served in World War II, most of them in theaters of combat, all of whom came back in one piece. But I just want to say about my dad, who was not happy in the service. He was drafted out of college. He rose all the way up from private all the way up to sergeant for 5 minutes, and then he was busted back down to private again. He did that twice. And he was busted back down for telling his commanding officer he could go F himself more than once. He also was in the invasion of Normandy and the Battle of the Bulge. Corporal Bill Simon.
He's our kind of guy, Steve.
Yes, I have both a celebration and a sorrow. The celebration is Katie and I are leaving for our home state of Michigan for 5 months. The sorrow is that we can't take you with you. We will miss you all.
Marcia, over here.
Sorry.
I didn't have anything to put up on the table, but I want to publicly memorialize an uncle, Neil Canarelli, who received the Silver Star for bravery during World War II. He was a medic in the Army in Germany, and he crawled out onto a field to save a lieutenant had been wounded. And he, just like my uncle, he told the story with a certain amount of humor. As he was crawling out there, a goat came up in the field, and the goat had a bell around him and came right up next to him. And he says, of all the GD places that this goat had to come, well, I'm crawling out here. And Uncle Neil, wherever you are, I remember you.
Hi, I'm Peggy Titus Hall, and I'd like to remember my dad who fought in Korea in 1951. And I'm married to a Navy man. So we watched the Army-Navy game in 2 different rooms.
Hi, I'm Barb. I didn't serve in any military branch, but I have many relatives who did. And my grandfather was in the Army in World War I, and he was a bugler. And when my father and his brothers were old enough to enlist, my grandfather said, do not go in the Army. You don't want to be walking on your feet all the time, so they all enlisted in the Navy.
Hi, thank you. I didn't know this was going to be occurring today, but my father was one of 14 children and 9 brothers, 6 of whom served in World War II. He was in the Army Air Corps. One of his brothers, Angelo, was machine gunned across his legs at a battle in Europe and became a German prisoner of war. But he came back. Another brother, Sammy, was in the Marine Corps as a medic and received the Silver Star for his efforts on Saipan, where he too kept going out and trying to bring people back who had been wounded, and he was in effect blown up by a grenade, but he came back too. So 6 Carlucci brothers in World War II.
I'd like to remember my Uncle Wayne Dumas, and he enlisted, well, he joined the war, World War II, lied about his age to get in, and then served. Just to thank my husband, who served 24 years in the Army, and lucky and happy to have relatives with us this wonderful weekend.
Hi, I'm Diane. My father was in the Merchant Marines. My uncle served, I can't remember, I think it was the Army. My fiance died in Korea. And when I was 21. And interestingly, my grandson lives in Korea and is teaching English to the little Korean children.
I'd like to remember my Uncle Fritz, who served in World War II in the Army, and on an island where the natives were starving, he said, well, I can help you. And so he threw a hand grenade into the lake, and all the fish rose to the surface. And after that, they decided that he was the king, and they came forward with all kinds of fruit and vegetables to thank him for his service.
I lit a candle myself for my grandfather, Robert John Petrie, who served in Korea, for my uncle, Jim Thoman, who served in Vietnam, for my brothers, Joe, who served in Kabul, for Paul, who went over as a military contractor because he couldn't get in, so he decided he'd go another way. How many veterans do we have in the room? Do we have anybody? For each and every one of you, thank you. We can't say it enough or sincerely enough, but thank you. May the love of this community hold all who need love and concern, and may the light of our community shine on the broken places of the world. May those who are grieving be comforted, and those who are tired find rest. May the broken places be healed, and may those who are filled with joy and laughter be abundant.
Our first reading is called Remembering Well by Paul S. Sawyer. The first time I ever played taps was at summer camp when I was 10 years old. That was the year I started playing trumpet, so I can only imagine how it sounded. I know there was no way that I could have hit the high note near to the end. The first time I played taps, in honor of those who died was in high school when I was contacted by the local Legion commander. He asked if I would mind occasionally being called on to play taps at graveside services for veterans, and I agreed. For the next couple of years, when there was a need, I would take my place with the Legion Honor Guard, wait for the 3 volleys of shots to ring out, and play the simple 24 notes of taps as clearly and as best I could. Each time, the Legion commander would quietly slip me a $10 bill, and that's about all that taps meant to me for a while. It was easy to do, it got me out of school, and I earned a little money. And then one day that changed. The man I was called upon to play for that day was the father of one of my Boy Scout leaders. Back then, like most of the adults I knew, I thought that my assistant scoutmaster was pretty old. But his father was a World War II veteran, so now thinking back, that means that both my leader and his father were relatively young at the time. Too young for their places there that morning, as the honored dead and as the grieving son. That day, as I began to play taps, this man, who I knew as wise and kind and relatively hard in the old boy, Boy Scout, wilderness leader sort of way, fell to his knees, overwhelmed with tears. I'm not sure how I made it through the whole piece that day, but after that, I thought that I might never be able to play taps again. Today, whether I'm playing it or hearing it, taps means something close to what it once meant, to the reasons for which it was written and originally used. Once upon a time, taps was a signal that the camp was relatively safe. It meant that you were not under siege or under attack of any kind. It meant that you were reasonably sure that there were no enemy soldiers to worry about, at least a bugle call's distance away. To a whole camp of soldiers, the notes of taps meant that unless you were on duty, you could close your eyes and you could sleep in peace. I didn't know that story or that sentiment all those years ago when I played taps for pocket money in the local cemetery. But in that meaning of taps, something speaks to me in my heart and soul about dying, and for those of us who remain, about remembering well. Our meditation today is adapted from Prayer for Memorial Day Meditation by Wayne B. Arneson. Spirit of life, we enter into this season of Memorial Day surrounded by such a cloud of witnesses. We remember, first of all the people who are currently serving in the armed forces, and we pray for their safe return. We also acknowledge that there are those who will not return as we grieve their passing. We honor their service and their sacrifice. We also pause this hour to give thanks for all those who have served in the nation's armed services. Those who have not served cannot fully imagine the experience of war, but we do know war's aftermath and the toll that it can take on the human heart. This day remembers and acknowledges loss, and so do we remember those whom we have loved and lost. We hold their names and their faces in our mind's eye. We recall the gifts they gave to us through the strength of their being, the depth of their love, the courage of their dying, and the fullness of their living. In the holy quiet of this hour, their names surround us, and they live with us in blessed memory. May we remain together in silence for a moment as a tribute to all that they have meant to us. Our second reading is adapted from The Bravery of Richard Kirtland by Ben LeBray. 164 years ago, on December 14, 1862, at Fredericksburg, Virginia, Sergeant Richard R. Kirtland of the 2nd South Carolina, called later the Angel of Mary's Heights, filled several canteens with water and crossed over the stone wall to care for his wounded enemies. That was the day after the major attacks below Mary's Heights, where hundreds of wounded and dying Union soldiers were caught between the lines and laying out in the open plain. This is his story. Kirtland was a sergeant in the 2nd Regiment of South Carolina Volunteers. The day after the Great Battle of Fredericksburg, his brigade occupied the road at the foot of Mary's Hill. 150 yards in front of the road, on the other side of a stone wall, lay Sykes' division of the United States Army. Between these troops and Kershaw's command, a skirmish fight was continued throughout the entire day. The ground between the lines was literally covered with dead and dying Federal soldiers. All day long, the wounded were calling desperately for water. In the afternoon, Sergeant Kirtland, a Confederate soldier, went to the headquarters of General Kershaw and said, "General, all through last night and today, I've been hearing those poor wounded Federal soldiers out there cry for water. Let me go and give them some." "Don't you know," replied the general, "that you would get a bullet through you the moment you stepped over the wall?" "Well, yes, sir," said the sergeant, "but if you will let me go, I'm willing to give it a try." The general reflected for a minute, then answered, "Kirtland, I ought not allow you to take this risk, but the spirit that moves you is so noble I cannot refuse. Go and may God protect you." In the face of almost certain death, the sergeant climbed the wall, watched with anxiety by the soldiers of his army. Under the curious gaze of his foes and exposed to their fire, he dropped to the ground and hastened on his errand of mercy. Unharmed, untouched, he reached the nearest sufferer. He knelt beside him, tenderly raised his drooping head, rested it gently on his breast, and poured the cool, life-giving water down the parched throat. This done, he laid him carefully down, placed the soldier's knapsack under his head, straightened his broken limbs, spread his coat over him, replaced the empty canteen with a full one, then turned to another sufferer. By this time, his conduct was understood by friend and foe alike, and the firing ceased on both sides. For an hour and a half did he pursue his noble mission, until he had relieved the wounded on all parts of the battlefield. Then he returned to his post uninjured. Kirtland did not survive the war. He died at the Battle of Chickamauga on September 20th, 1863. And now, if you could rise in body or spirit and join in singing Amazing Grace, number 205.
Thy
3-day weekend all across our country, people will gather in cemeteries and parks and town squares. They'll put out flags beside gravestones, wreaths will be laid, names will be read, and there will be parades and speeches and moments of silence. And in the middle of it all, cheek and jowl with it all, there will be barbecues and swimming and themed 5K races for charity. This is not a criticism of that. Human beings have always mixed the sacred and the ordinary. We grieve and then we go eat the potato salad and the deviled eggs. We remember the dead and then children go running by to go find the sprinklers. We stand before monuments and we pray, and later somebody asks who brought the folding chairs and which way to the porta potties. It's all tangled together. The yin and the yang of sacred and normal is not disrespectful. It's the actual point. Those who died in the service, those beloved dead, didn't die so that the rest of us would spend every day standing solemnly at attention. They didn't die for military. They didn't die for war. They gave up their lives in the hope that normal life would continue somewhere, so that children could play and families could gather, communities could argue about politics and laugh at bad jokes, worship and read and speak freely, love freely, and live ordinary lives under the shelter of that extraordinary sacrifice. But if Memorial Day becomes only a long weekend, then we've missed something sacred. Because before it was a holiday, it was a day of reckoning. It asks us to look at the cost of the freedoms we so often take for granted. Freedom is not some kind of self-sustaining machine. It's not automatic. It doesn't float up here like the weather, raining down gently on us. It's built and defended and repaired and extended and sometimes paid for with human lives. Today we honor those who died serving our nation. We honor their courage and their loyalty, the terrible finality of what they gave. And we can do this all without pretending that war is somehow beautiful and noble. War is not clean, it's not beautiful, it's not glorious. War destroys. It destroys bodies and families. Even when a war must be fought, even when people serve with honor, even when the cause is just, war is a human tragedy. That's part of why this day matters, because it stops us from making this an abstract. It stops us from talking about the conflict in terms of strategy or policy or victory. It reminds us of the human cost, the people who didn't come home, the empty chairs. To honor the dead, honestly, we have to hold two truths at the same time. Their sacrifices were noble. And the need for such sacrifice is a heartbreaking disgrace. Both are true. There is something profoundly and deeply honorable and moving about someone willing to serve something larger than themselves, who says, I have obligations to my community and my country, and to those who cannot protect themselves, I will be there. That kind of courage is amazing and deserves reverence. But reverence doesn't mean we romanticize this whole horrible process. And it doesn't require silence about the cost. We have to talk about the cost, and we have to say it out loud. And that brings us to this service, counting the cost. What does it cost to live by your values? For those who died in military service, the cost was everything. Now, most of us will never be asked, not again for those who served, and not now for the rest of us. We won't be asked to pay that cost, but one way or another, we will be asked whether our values are decorative or real. It's easy to say you believe in kindness until kindness requires patience with someone difficult. And it's easy to believe in justice until justice requires you to give up an advantage. Everyone is great at believing in freedom until somebody else uses their freedom in a way that makes you want to swat them. It's easy to believe in courage until the moment comes when speaking up might cost you everything. What do our morals and values mean if they are never ever tested? That's important. It is easy as heck not to commit murder if you are the only person standing on a desert island. I guarantee you, your virtuous little butt will not commit a single murder that week. A value that's never been tested may still be sincere, but it's not proven. It's like a muscle that has never had to lift a weight. It's there, but you don't know what it's going to do. We discover our values not only by what we say, but by what we're willing to do. Now, anybody who has ever loved or protected another human being knows this. Love is a gorgeous thing until it wakes you up at 3 a.m. because there's a monster in the closet, and the kid also needs to know right now what purple smells like. Love is great right up until that minute. Compassion is amazing until the person who you are giving a quick, tidy ride to throws up in the back of your car and admits they have the flu. Integrity is great until lying just a little would get your company that big contract that would change your life. And peace is lovely. It's amazing until you have to decide whether peace means avoiding conflict or confronting harm. Our values become real in the testing. And here's another truth. Sometimes the world doesn't let us live our values the way we want to. We are trapped sometimes in systems where every choice is morally compromised. A soldier can serve with courage and honor and be ordered into situations that haunt them still. A nurse who believes in healing may work for a medical system that treats people as paperwork. A teacher who believes every child needs attention and love may work in an overcrowded classroom with 42 kids and not enough time or materials. And we may find ourselves caught between what we believe and what the world makes possible. And that wound has a name, that being caught. It's called moral injury. Moral injury is not guilt or regret. It's the wound that opens up in your soul, in your heart, in your deepest places, when your moral commitments are violated, either by what you did or what you failed to do, or what you were powerless to stop. A lot of us feel this moral injury every day of our lives right now. It's the ache, the horrible ache of saying, that shouldn't have happened. I should have been able to do more. It's the spiritual disorientation of realizing that the world can force impossible choices on human beings and then leave them to carry the weight alone. So many soldiers coming home carry these wounds and they bring them home. Their families at times share them. Not just trauma from danger, but the pain of situations that no human being should have had to navigate. If we want to honor those who've died, we also have to care for those who came home. Not with slogans, not just by saying thank you for your service, but with real support. We have to support mental health care, community and jobs and housing, a willingness to understand that service can shape the soul in ways that many of us will never comprehend. We have to help. Moral injury is not limited to war, though. It happens anywhere human beings are forced to betray values. It happens when people without enough power are forced into choices they never should have had to make. And then you have to stand there saying, who am I if I didn't do what I believed? That's a holy question, and it's also a horrible question. When I was in my first year of student ministry, the congregation I came to had a terrible event the year before that. A young teenager of the congregation had been killed. The person was caught that did it, and when I got there, they were in the middle of a sensational trial. And a group of congregants came to me and to my teaching minister and said, now is the time, at the height of the trial, you have to denounce the death penalty, which was very much on the table. You have to get up on the pulpit right now and say, look at this. This is how much we believe. We both refused. I don't know what the actual minister said, but I told those people asking, I could not look at her mama in the front row and demand life and mercy for a man who had none. I couldn't do it. But I don't believe in the death penalty. And I didn't know what to do with that at the time. But I sure as heck couldn't get up there and say it. The pain of moral injury tells us that our conscience is still alive, even if we didn't do what we wanted to. Because if we were indifferent, we wouldn't hurt, and if our values were gone, we wouldn't grieve. The wound tells us that we still care and we can do better. Because shame thrives in silence, we talk about it. Healing begins when the soul is no longer forced to carry its burden alone. We seek repair where repair is possible. We apologize when apology is needed. We change course when change is necessary, and we make braver choices when we can. And when repair can't happen, when the dead cannot be brought back, when the past cannot be undone, when the harm settles over an entire country, we commit ourselves to living differently going forward, to continuing to try over and over to live our values. That is how we honor sacrifice, not by pretending it's all fine, not by wrapping grief in a flag and calling it finished. We become more faithful to the values for which people gave their lives. Because if they died for freedom, then we have to protect freedom. And if they died for democracy, then we have to practice democracy and defend it. Not as a spectator sport. And if they died for peace, we have to make peace. Real and lasting peace. The question of Memorial Day is not who died alone. The question is who died to give us these freedoms, and how shall we live to protect them going forward? It is our responsibility to defend the gifts we have been given. Because the dead cannot do that work now. We can. They can't cast ballots. We can. They can't welcome the stranger, but we can. We can feed the hungry and build communities of courage and compassion. We can insist that the freedoms promised by their deaths become freedoms lived in flesh and blood, and that is how remembrance becomes sacred. Amen. As we extinguish this flame, may we not extinguish the memory of all those who gave their lives in the service. May their courage call us to courage and their sacrifice call us to responsibility. And may their loss help us to build a more peaceful world. Now we are going to do a song we have not done often. It's 1009, it's Meditation on Breathing. I'm going to try to make sure we know it. It has two parts. We are going to do the main part, and then I'm going to ask the low voices to start with the second, and eventually all of us will join them on our way out of the song. Lisa, would you just play the melody line for us? So it's very simple. When I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. Let's go. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. Now let me hear the men's voices. You're just going to play it for me. Breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in. I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe in love. Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. Hey! Please go from this place with reverence in your heart, remembering those who did not return home, and honoring the families that carried their absence. Go with a longing for peace, and build a world that it may exist in. Peace, Ashe, and may it be so.